So those of you who have War of the Ring or have played War of the Ring, Fritz needs some feedback. I need some guidance here. I'm pretty sure that I want to acquire this game, but I need a little bit to kind of push myself over the edge to make sure it kind of fits into how I see it being played. Now, as a foundation, in terms of board gaming, I want to share with you how I have my games organized. There's 3 piles. Sometimes piles, sometimes organized. Depends on what's going on in the Fritz cave, right? The first group of board games, that first pile, these are games that I play on a regular basis, either solo or with the gaming group or just kind of pick up games. There's no reason to really file them away on my shelf because they're always in circulation. I mean, they literally live in a box or a stack right next to my 40K armies and some of my Battletech stuff. The third pile of games, so we're skipping the second for a moment. The third pile of games are games that I enjoy playing, but they occupy a space that is played by other gaming experiences. As an example, I play Warhammer 40,000. It's a sci-fi miniature game. It's awesome. We'll leave it at that. Being a miniature game, there's also board games that tie into the universe. Relic, Space Hulk. I love them. They're amazing games. They're great games. But since I play 40K tabletop most of the time, jumping into Space Hulk or Relic, that itch doesn't always happen all the time. That craving doesn't always happen all the time. So this third pile of games, there's nothing wrong with them. I love them. I wouldn't trade them out of my collection, but they don't hit the table as much. The second grouping of games, these are games that are absolutely amazing, but they require a commitment. They require both a certain type of players, and they require a half a day, a full day, right? This commitment to see it through to the end. Examples would be Kingdom Death Monster. Even if you're going to play a couple of Lantern Years, or maybe you're going to play it once a week with the same group of people for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. It's almost like a D&D campaign. Twilight Imperium, TI. I love it. Descent, first edition. Love it. These are games that I don't bring to the club or pickup groups because for the most part, we have 2, maybe 3 hours tops to play. So by the time I set up TI, we're in the first opening moves, and then we got to kind of pack up and go. So my first question is, I believe, from what I've seen now, I've never played War of the Rings. I've heard about it. I've been intrigued about it. And kind of to fill out my board gaming and my wargaming collection, I want to kind of acquire it on there. So I believe, and you guys will give me feedback, that this would fall into almost the second tier category. From what I see online and what people are saying, we're thinking about 3 to 4 hours to play. Now, a lot of the reviews online are like, wow, 3 to 4 hours, 5 hours, that's a long time to play. And I'm like, that's a war game. That's like an average game of 40K or Battletech on there compared to board gaming or maybe Dark Souls, right? Compared to board gaming where you want it to last an hour and a half, 2 hours. Beyond that, it goes kind of from that first category to that second category. So is War of the Ring something that is going to require the commitment to set up and really ahead of time say, hey, Saturday afternoon, Friday evening, let's get some War of the Ring on and play it that way. So I don't really envision it as a pickup type game or you bring it to the shop or the club or the comic store unless you have the time. Now, what I'm really interested in is the crossover aspects of it and allow me to kind of share my thought process on that. I love wargaming. War games like Battletech, Chain of Command, Warhammer 40,000. Chain of Command is a World War II historical game. And in these games, you have miniatures, you build them, you paint them, you have terrain, you have a gaming board, you have tactics. It's a pretty big commitment to play. You have to find another opponent, someone interested. They have to have the material. Even if they don't have the material, look, I've got multiple 40K armies. I've got multiple Battletech lances. Chain of Command, I've got Germans and Americans. I'm working on some Russians on there. So I could bring my own toys and share them with you, but the rule sets are pretty complex. The missions you can play are complex. Not impossible, but when we compare them to, say, a board game like Zombicide, there's a complexity there. War of the Ring, what I'm looking for is a wargaming experience. So it has the miniatures, it has the map, that's the terrain of the gaming table, but it's a closed system, right, where we're just exploring one aspect of Lord of the Rings, and we're fighting with a rule set that, I mean this in a good way, is limited to just that. So it's not like multiple missions and multiple armies. It's exploring kind of a distilled snapshot of something really interesting, yet with wargaming rules. So I'm interested in a game that's almost like wargaming light. And again, not that it's a light game, it doesn't appear to be, but compared to a full-blown wargaming system, something that with my wargaming friends, if we want to play something a little bit different, I can bring this game out. Another example would be board gaming friends that have the time and the interest of a war game or kind of a high-level strategy game, but don't want to play Warhammer 40,000 or Battletech because of the complexity of the rules, or they don't have their own pieces, their own armies, figuring it all out, how the heck to even select units. This seems like a game that we could sit down. And then the final piece, and perhaps the biggest piece I should have started with, the appeal of it. I mean, it's Lord of the Rings. I don't want to say everybody knows Lord of the Rings, but maybe I think it's fair to say in the circles that we travel, that you and I travel, that we all travel in, wargaming, role-playing gaming, board gaming, comic books, fantasy, sci-fi. I mean, it's Lord of the Rings. So I figure on that alone, yeah, it'll fit. It'll work. It's kind of like Zombicide Black Plague. If you've never played a board game before, this is why one of the reasons why I like Zombicide Black Plague. If you've never played board games before, you've never been involved in that, Black Plague, and Modern to a certain extent, is a great gateway into the games because in our culture right now, in the DNA, everybody knows zombies. You know, Walking Dead, all that type of stuff, Z-Wars, and survival horror. So the fact that they walk in and they see zombie miniatures and they see a game, they're like, hey, I want to check this out. Well, for someone that's not necessarily into wargaming or board gaming, they know Lord of the Rings. So I figure on all those elements, I really can't see any reason why not to acquire it and add it to my collection. Your thoughts on that? And the two sub-thoughts, do I sleeve the cards? Now, I'm not a sleeving maniac. I'm trying to think games I've sleeved. Zombicide Black Plague, I did sleeve because I painted up the miniatures, and it gets played minimum once a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. The copy has gotten chewed up really, really bad, but that's good. That's a badge of honor. But Pathfinder Adventure card game, other things I definitely have not sleeved. Lord of the Rings, the usage of it, because I do see this game getting some heavy circulation. I do see it joining that first group, that first pile. And the second question, it's probably not really a question. We're talking about the just kind of the generic edition of it. Painting the miniatures. As a wargamer, I feel like I want to paint them on there, but certainly what others have commented on and what I've seen, they almost need to be painted to stand out on there in terms of unit divisions and things like that. So what's the level of detail, and does anyone know any links to kind of show off some of the painted miniatures? I would just do a tabletop. You know, I do primary colors, some markings, wash, some highlight, some dry brush, done. I don't think I'd even really base them on there. It's a lot of miniatures to paint. They're a little smaller. But then again, painting smaller scale Russians and painting up an entire set of Zombicide Black Plague, it's not undoable for me. I think I could do it in a couple of weeks on there. Your thoughts, your feedback, links in the comments of things I should be checking out for the game.